Chapter 6. The Power of Giving. Exercising our mental faculties with the power of faith. Quote, "There is more happiness in giving than there is in receiving. Practice giving and people will give to you. They will pour into your laps a fine measure, pressed down and shaken together and overflowing. For with the measure that you are measuring out, they will measure out to you in return." End quote. Taken from Acts chapter 20 verse 35 and Luke chapter 6 verse 38. I will say that this is probably the most important chapter in the entire book, and rereading and studying and taking notes is paramount. We have expanded throughout the previous chapters why we are able to accomplish anything we desire. We are brilliantly designed to accomplish in reality anything we could conceive in our imagination. Our abilities exponentially grow and become more firmly established as we learn to follow specific instructions and work with principles that are founded on the laws of the universe. The scientific field of physics has truly made tremendous breakthroughs in helping us clearly define these laws and how they relate to our personal lives. As previously mentioned, it continues to help us see that truly we are, quote, designed for accomplishment, engineered for success, end quote, as Zig Ziglar said. With our faith being properly exercised and nourished, we can now expound upon the laws of physics and integrate them into specific patterns of activity. For what? Until now, we have talked about why we can be successful, clarifying that it is by understanding basic principles and laws of life that will determine our success. It is understanding that our success is based on our patterns of behavior and being alert to what outcomes we may have received due to our transmission. But what we have not gone over is the specific foundational action plans that we could decide to take to get from point A to point B. It is now with this instruction that, after we have developed the habits of studying and personal development, we will now be able to create powerful universal commands based on integrated actions for the creation of our best possible outcome of our positive dreams and goals. Self-awareness and the present moment, the power of contentment and discontentment. People define success and wealth in many different ways. What we want to establish here is that true success is our personal desire for our entire happiness pie to be filled. People who may have great material or financial wealth may struggle in keeping their relationships under the same agenda. People who may have built strong, happy relationships with their families may be in constant struggle and stress as they live paycheck to paycheck. On the other hand, people who may have a great career and find fulfillment in what they do may be experiencing health problems that eats away their happiness pie. The challenge with them face is that many times our unhappiness in one area spills over onto other areas where we may have easily built success. We hear constantly that marital problems and arguments come from financial situations that may have been persevering on their peace of mind. Or it could be that a career could be very time-consuming and leaves too little time spent with their loved ones. Being kept away from loved ones for prolonged periods of time can be very distressing. It is a balancing act of energy. Unfortunately, we may believe that we can only have one or the other. Maybe we believe that we can only focus on one thing at a time. Maybe we can only shift our focus on two, perhaps money and family, while sacrificing career fulfillment or good health. Someone may focus on their health and career, but sacrifice time with family. It is almost like discontentment is constantly defining our lives with everything we do. Discontentment is not being suggested here as a bad thing. This is because our thoughts ultimately decide how we decide to look at such specific feelings. The same can be said about the connotations of the word contentment. For example, a person who is content could experience both negative and positive consequences. We may have seen people who may be morbidly obese and still feel happy with who they are and who they may become. A big and famous comedian who calls himself Fluffy said that he would rather just be happy eating whatever he desired than worry about working out and exercising misery. Quote, "I'd rather die full and content than sore and hungry," was his joke. The prevalence of his lax attitude about his health may have consequences. It is his decision. It could also be that a person loves their job and makes just enough to sustain their life. But their lack of ambition may eventually affect their peace of mind, for outside influences such as inflation and the rising cost of living may catch them at a disadvantage. The natural laws of the universe will foment people to move from their comfort zones, which they may not be ready to accept or adapt to. But on the other hand, if we are too content, we may never be motivated to resolve a situation that may be adversely affecting our lives. A person who cannot afford the things but keep charging on credit cards could eventually experience financial ruin and wreak havoc on people who are close to them. Unnecessary burdens may be multiplying on top of each other. A person who just eats fast food will eventually pay the price with their health and well-being in the long run. A measure of discontentment would ultimately do them some good. On the other side of the coin of discontentment, people may readily achieve success. It is obvious that discontentment can actually make somebody get up from where they are and try to improve the situation that is bothering them. A financially poor person may become so fed up with their living situation that they become a powerful rags to riches story. The battered spouse who is constantly abused either physically or verbally might become so fed up with the situation they will eventually leave or find better circumstances. Maybe they'll take control and improve their present challenges. The obese person who finds shame in their condition may come to grips and start an exercise routine or health program that completely turns them around and thus shape themselves into a fit and healthy being. The discontentment of a family head with his career and how it takes so much time away from loved ones may finally make him decide to jump into a better opportunity or simplify their lives to the basic essentials for the sake of family closeness. On the other hand of discontentment, we always hear of the multimillionaires who are constantly trying to get their fix by making more money. The spouse who may have a perfectly fine relationship with their partner but can't seem to get enough attention from others of the opposite sex. The person who is constantly looking to feed their alcohol or drug addiction is maybe consistently trying to master discontentment. It will always be there once they've had their fix. A healthy amount of contentment will certainly help them shift focus. Self-awareness is the key, and knowing ourselves is paramount. Maybe the reader is right now experiencing a combination of contentment and discontentment on certain areas of life. Specifically, we might be learning this information because we have been wondering what could be the best way to achieve and improve such aspects. Maybe you have been praying for an answer. Maybe you are on a mission to learn what it takes to change your personal situation. Obviously, this is not far from the truth when it comes to everyone. We all want something and we want it now, or at least as soon as humanly possible. Now going off on a tangent from the main subject, let's consider the shift of contentment and discontentment if we have biological eternity. The person experiencing discontentment in one area of life will have all the time in the world to change it. For example, a family head experiencing too much time away from family because of work will never feel too bad about it because they know they can change it anytime they want. The family who maybe experienced such absence from that person will know that they have an eternity to be together. The billionaire will not feel the need to make more money just for the sake of having more money. The spouse will not have to worry about personal attention from their spouse because they know they have all the time in the world to be together. A person can have any career they want at any time they desire, for they may change their mind regardless of profits or time spent. With all the time in the world, youth and beauty will be a given. People will have all the time and resources they could ever need to create their personal, ideal situation. This continues to prove that Tesla's call for eternity and youth is, in essence, the real foundation of life. These laws of physics, considering how they are interconnected to the fantastic benefits of biological immortality, are strong observations of how life is supposed to be. Why is it not then? We'll continue to discuss this in a later chapter. Contentment and the power of feeling good. The title of this chapter refers to the key to acquiring everything we desire. We must understand that the laws of physics demand that we give first, so we may receive that which we want most. Quote, where there is no wood, the fire goes out, end quote, taken from Proverbs chapter 26, verse 20. We must but only give the frequency of what we want. Everything in the universe is energy. Therefore, we are to offer the vibration or match the frequency of what we want. It is all based on the laws of physics that govern the matrix of particles of energy. Let's carefully examine these thoughts. We generally desire things because we want more contentment and we want to feel good. These feelings of desire are stronger the more we experience what we do not like. Our low income makes us feel bad, therefore we want a lot more money. Our crappy car that breaks down all the time makes us feel bad, therefore we desire a nicer, newer vehicle. People who makes us feel bad makes us desire people who will make us feel good. We want heat and food because we feel cold and hungry. In essence, we want energy because we lack energy. So if we think about what we want, in reality, we must match and give consistently the frequency that we desire to experience. First, we realize that we must feel content and feel good in this instant and offer that frequency in order to continue to receive it. Since we want things to feel content and feel good, then we must first be content and feel good now. Contentment and feeling good about our present circumstances sets the foundation for us to receive that which we are asking. But how can we possibly send out a frequency of what we want when our set point might be mostly negative? This certainly is a good question and a strange paradox. We have established that we want things because we are experiencing what we do not want. Also, we want things because we have experienced them and we want more of them. Because we have felt good, we want more of that which made us feel good. Therefore, when we experience lack of that which makes us feel good, it makes us feel bad. But how can we match the frequency of what we want when it is in a much higher vibrational field? Since we are currently vibrating lower, which means we lack that which makes us feel better than we feel now. And how can we match the vibration of what we want when our collective vibration is set to matching that which we do not want? This is true because when we are broadcasting negative thoughts and feelings, it is because we are looking at something we do not desire. With this, more of those things will continue to come into our experience and match our frequency. We start to feel worse, and our negative thinking and feelings are being enforced because of this attractive magnetic pull. First, we must know that there's no right or wrong and that both have advantages and disadvantages. But preferably, we desire for our current vibration to be that of contentment and happiness regardless of circumstances. Newton's third law of motion, as previously described, states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This will help us understand why this is the case. Along with Newton's law, which is enforced by the law of magnetic attraction, we must know and realize that we always have a choice. Another way of saying that we always have a choice is this. We must know and realize that our brain has the ability to create and transmit any frequency we desire based on our command. Once we desire and transmit a positive frequency based on what we want, we move on progressively to the positive direction of feeling good. Let's say we raise ourselves from feeling contentment to feeling joy. That will continue to be matched by its reaction. People will react to our joy and therefore make us more joyful. It will continue to propel us upward to our most positive emotions. But we have found that the opposite is true. Someone may say negatively and sarcastically, "What are you so happy about? Wipe that stupid smile out of your face. Or get off that cloud and come back to reality." Certainly, if we allow it, such comments will bring us down. This law will consistently force us to make a decision. We will either choose to focus on the positive or the negative. The more prevalent our set point of vibration is, then the more prevalent the pull will be in regard to our decision to be able to sustain that feeling. If we feel angry, then by the law of attraction, we will continue to create situations and circumstances that will fuel that feeling. We may decide to calm down and move ourselves away from the trigger that is causing our anger to flare and go for a walk. Or we may decide to fuel the fire by holding on to what made us angry. Self-awareness dictates that we know what fire we are presently fueling. Our energy could be depressed, anxious, or sad, or it could be content, happy, optimistic, or passionate. Whatever it is, our present vibrational frequency will continue to permeate our reality, and the universe will mirror back that which we are given. The caveat is that we will always receive an opposing frequency to help us appreciate contrast. It is paramount that we realize and have self-awareness of the opposing reactions in our present reality so we can focus on the positive and change our vibrational output. Since it is our desire to always feel as good as we can, then when we are feeling bad, our subconscious mind and body's defense mechanisms will always give us solutions to improve the situation. Maybe we need to relieve stress through exercise, playing a game, watching a funny movie. But during the times when we feel really good, those who feel bad will send us negative feedback. Know that this is good in reality because it helps us to appreciate contrast. We will know that since we do not want to feel again like those who are feeling bad, thus we can make the conscious decision to continue enforcing the current vibrational point defined by our present good feeling. People will continue to feel good by enforcing and focusing consistently on that good feeling. So whether we decide to engage conscious positive thoughts, words, and actions to enforce our current good feeling, it is still our conscious decision to do so. Actions such as working out, running, walking, laughing, or smiling on a regular basis will also help us to powerfully perpetuate our decision to feel good. It is our personal decision to create the shift from negative to positive or vice versa. We must emphasize the point that we are either growing or dying, progressing or regressing. We must consciously give the frequency for that which we desire. Always be rejoicing. Give thanks for everything. Quote, always be rejoicing. Pray constantly. Give thanks for everything. Do not put out the fire of the Spirit. End quote. Taken from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 through 19. The biblical reference indicates aptly that our focus needs to be in our happiness. We must take steps to positively expand the current positive points that are being represented to us. We do not want to be in morbid fear of our negative thoughts and feelings. Instead, we should be empowered by them by giving thanks for them. We should appreciate and feel thankful for these low feelings, for in reality what they do is give us contrast. They will launch us into giving us the proper pattern of action so we may feel good more often, more consistently. It helps us to develop neural pathways that will help us form habit, that will make it easier to move through our negative emotions toward more positive ones. As we develop the conscious awareness of our negative thoughts, words, and emotions, we can exercise the same awareness to shift our focus to that which we want. As time passes us by, we will have developed a multitude of positive habits in knowing that every time we are confronted with a negative vibration, we will take positive action and develop the habit to think about that which is of a positive nature. This will continue to shift our set point of vibration to a progressively higher frequency. Thus, our positive pattern will continue to be enforced. But why is feeling as good as we can so important in relation to what we want? And why are feelings of contentment and discontentment powerful tools to help us create? Also, how can we become more self-aware of these feelings? We must be at cause and in control. Simply, if we accept the fact that our present reality are indicators of our current set collective broadcast of frequency as specified by the laws of physics, then we must know we are a cause of our current situation, whether positive or negative. We created and generated vibrations in the past and continue to do so based on our thought, words, and actions. Our present reality is but a reflection of that which we have broadcasted with our brain and our DNA. Our brain transmits powerfully based on our most prevalent thoughts, words, and actions. Our DNA was pre-programmed based on the collective vibration of our parents passed down the bloodline. Our DNA is also continually being reprogrammed as we have continued to experience and observe what our DNA has been offering 24/7 based on our DNA set point of vibration. This means that most likely, up to this point, we have only been reacting to our unconscious creations. It is like a stranded boat just being tossed around by the waves and the winds of the sea, wherever they decide to take us. Our DNA vibration is also enforced and reprogrammed based on our habits of thinking, words, and actions. Our habits and our character traits are truly our destiny, as the former Prime Minister of England aptly put it. The point of destiny in this sense is that it is the set point of prevalent energy programmed into our DNA based on our bloodline. It is not implied that some deity has determined every facet and experience of our life, or that there are strange forces at work making our life predestined regardless of our choice and personal power. What we desire to really be aware of is that our DNA vibrates 24/7 based on the positive and negative programming of our bloodline. The great news is that we can consistently make it better and upgrade it as we desire to experience what we do want and not what we do not want. As we persistently become more aware of our patterns of behavior with our present lives, then we will continue to positively make choices that will eventually change our DNA programming and our habits of thinking. To do the opposite is to continue practicing mysticism and superstition. People who are superstitious or mystics generally look to outside things, people, and influence as the cause for their misery and negative feelings. They always will blame everyone else except for themselves, the true cause of what is happening in their lives. We hear of sayings like, quote, if you point a finger at someone, there are 3 fingers pointing right back at you, end quote. As the Bible reference aptly puts it, quote, stop judging that you may not be judged. For with the judgment you are judging, you will be judged, and with the measure that you are measuring out, they will measure out to you. Why then do you look at the straw in your brother's eye, but do not notice the rafter in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, allow me to remove the straw from your eye, when look, a rafter's in your own eye? Hypocrite! First, remove the rafter from your own eye, and then you will see clearly how to remove the straw from your brother's eye. End quote. Taken from Matthew chapter 7 verses 1 through 5. It is noted that this refers to our negative thoughts toward those who are closer to us. But in reality, the emphasis here is on stop judging. Stop blaming outside influences. Stop pointing the finger at other things. And stop judging things, because the reality is that our vibration is only coming back to us. It is all mirror images of our thoughts and everything that these broadcasted thoughts generate and create. It is all in our experience because we are the cause of those things that are either negatively or positively affecting our lives. The irony is when we create good things that make us feel good, we take full credit, but we will never take full credit for our own shortcomings and the negative feedback we receive from our present awareness. The prevalence and constant exercise of this single concept of thinking will always make us feel empowered. That's when we realize that negative events in our life are there because of the magnetic pull of our collective broadcast. Then it will also be empowering to confess and accept full responsibility for everything that is happening in our lives. We must strongly consider that we are at fault and we are the only ones to blame, period. Quote, therefore you are inexcusable, O men, whoever you are, if you judge, for when you judge another, you condemn yourself, because you who judge practice the same things. End quote. Taken from Romans chapter 2 verse 1. Quote, when under trial, let no one say, I am being tried by God. For with evil things God cannot be tried, nor does he himself try anyone. But each one is tried by being drawn out and enticed by his own desire. End quote. Taken from James chapter 1 verse 14. We reap what we sow, positive or negative. This is when, like properly trained Navy SEALs, this training must kick in on the battlefield. We must take these concepts and powers of discernment and take control. We must stop blaming outside influences for what is happening in our lives and take full responsibility for them. It will shift us to saying, forget everything. I am in control and let me create and focus on exactly what I do want. This is the real power of feeling good now. It is knowing that regardless of our circumstances, we can always make them better. So we may bring this question back. Why is it so important to feel good? Because when we feel bad, it is only because we created it and we are focused on our negative thoughts. We are focused simply on what we do not want. We are in fear of what we don't want. Essentially, we are exercising faith in creating what we don't want. Considering that our habits may just be a product of DNA inheritance and reinforcement from our thoughts, will help us become fully aware of who we really are. It will also help us to know where we stand in connection to where we want to go. Are we figuratively 200 pounds overweight? Are we ahead of the game or are we losing? We must know plain and simple. Thus, do we feel good or do we feel bad most of the time? With this in mind, we must accept the truth of negative events. They exist because they will help us focus. They happen because they warn us of the frequency we are giving off. For we must turn to self-awareness and realize that we must change what we are thinking. Negative events happen because, in essence, they launch us out of or into either discontentment or contentment. It makes us better and will make us grow if we decide to take hold of them and have them serve us, just like a servant ready to do our bidding. Do we command it to become that which we want? Negative outcomes will make us feel better if we choose it to be. It is not the seemingly negative consequences that are good, but the feeling that they give us. Why? Because then we can focus those feelings and thoughts in the opposite direction and then decide what we truly want to experience. Then really, there is no reason to ever feel bad just for the sake of feeling bad. It is an opportunity to broadcast a frequency powerfully to create more precisely and positively. No need to fret or worry. Everything's always fine. When we realize this, it then makes sense why we can give thanks for everything. We can be thankful for those negative events because they can help us get exactly what we want and need. Such negative feelings will propel us to take action. We can become so angry about a situation that it will move us to make massive action, to shift into a different direction. Whether our set feelings are sadness, depression, despair, boredom, hatred, rage, or frustration, among others, we will know that we want to feel enthusiasm, eagerness, joy, and other forms of happiness. Another reason negative events may occur in our life is because we are actually broadcasting the most powerful and positive frequency we can possibly offer. We are giving them exactly what we want for the purpose of receiving that which we want. We may be in complete alignment and focusing precisely on our heart's desires, but because of this strange paradox, weird phenomena, or confusing oxymoron, we must experience what we don't want. Why? We will discuss this in a later chapter. Being a cause over negative feelings or events. Now that we have established the importance of self-awareness in connection to our conscious decisions, feeling good becomes paramount. Our good feelings then become a perfect foundation to create what we want, but not the only way to be able to create and obtain what we desire. Feeling as good as we possibly can is absolutely the optimal way of doing things and thus create the best results. But also some effort in broadcasting what we want, regardless of how we feel, will absolutely create some results. 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Consider the following scripture illustrations. Quote, Then he went on to tell them an illustration about the need for them to always pray and not give up, saying, In a certain city there was a judge who had no fear of God and no respect for man. There was also a widow in that city who kept going to him and saying, See that I get justice from my legal opponent. Well, for a while he was unwilling, but afterward he said to himself, Although I do not fear God or respect any man, because this widow keeps making me trouble, I will see that she gets justice so that she will not keep wearing me out with her demand. Then the Lord said, Hear the judge, although unrighteous, said, Certainly, then will not God cause justice to be done for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night, while he is patient toward them? End quote. Taken from Luke chapter 18, verses 1 through 7. Also, this other account has a similar connotation. While she prayed for a long time before Jehovah, Eli was watching her mouth. Hannah was speaking in her heart, only her lips were trembling, but her voice was not heard, so Eli thought she was drunk. Eli said to her, How long will you stay drunk? Stop drinking your wine. At this, Hannah answered, No, my lord, I am a woman under great stress. I have not drunk wine or anything alcoholic, but I am pouring out my soul before Jehovah. Do not take your servant for a worthless woman, for I have been speaking until now out of my great anguish and distress. Then Eli answered, Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant your petition that you have asked of him. To this she said, "Let your servant find favor in your eyes." And the woman went on her way and ate, and her face was no longer downcast. End quote. Taken from 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 12 through 18. Although it was emphasized that feeling good now, regardless of the situation we may currently experience, is the most ideal place to broadcast a decision or desire, we should not conclude that we should wait to feel really good to decide to transmit such a decision or desire. In the first illustration spoken by the teacher, it was emphasized that we can persistently ask or broadcast a transmission, especially if we have negative feelings. The agony and discontentment of the widow asking the judge for justice must have been of epic proportions. We can discern this to be true since her strong discontentment and distressing situation was moving her powerfully to persist on her request. Her ability to persist was so precise that even though the judge was aloof and cold to her misery, he still considered yielding to her just because she was wearing me out with her demand. Obviously, the widow was not in a place of feeling good, but her intense negative emotion obliterated all possible resistance that may have prevented her from getting what she desired. Her focus was precisely on what she wanted because she was experiencing intensely what she did not want. Thus, the lesson is that we must persist boldly in our requests and broadcast frequencies based on our desires without giving up regardless of how we feel. Also, we must broadcast and focus on what we want, especially when we are feeling the worst. In the second illustration, we see a woman who is also in great distress and sorrow. Her life was made difficult by an adversary, her husband's second wife. We can see that in her time, polygamy was widely accepted and practiced. In a time where a family's economic status was supported by the increasing of numbers within the family arrangement, this woman was experiencing barrenness. Women were expected to give birth to many children and thus preserve the family name and land. The high numbers in a family also helped to cultivate the land they possess. Hannah had not been able to give birth and was considered barren or unable to produce progeny for her husband. Thus the second wife comes into scene and is able to give him several children. Hannah's situation was made more distressing because of the rival wife kept taunting her and belittling Hannah for not having children. Her situation is now irrelevant to us, but we do want to give light to some specific course of action in regard to her transmission of brain frequency, her desire. The account tells us that she was in so much emotional pain that while she was making a request to God, she seemed to others as drunk. Key words in the verse emphasize that her transmission was of long duration. Her trembling lips and visibly anxious emotional state describes to us that she had powerful emotional energy being transmitted in connection with her desire. It was obvious she was not happy or anywhere near feeling remotely good, but that did not prevent her from focusing on what she truly wanted. She shifted her emotions toward exactly what she wanted. Two more points we can take to heart is the description of the nature of her prayer or transmission of frequency. It was mentioned to us that she poured her soul and that afterwards she was no longer concerned with her affliction. It would be good to ask ourselves whether our desire may have such intensity in our hearts that we feel like we could give anything for it. This collective vibration based on her personal request was also left alone, as if once asked and ordered, she knew she would receive what she wanted. Have we realized that we can possibly leave our desires into the hands of someone or something much more capable of accomplishing than that of ourselves? This question will continue to be developed in a later chapter. One thing is for sure though, we must not be discouraged if we feel we have a long trip ahead of us. What we mean by this is maybe we realize our collective vibration mirrors to us that we are really behind and in need of tremendous work. Maybe we notice that we feel bad most of the time, with just slight superficial fixes that only mask the pain temporarily. Maybe we observe that our surroundings are less than desirable and we consistently find ourselves wishing for somebody to come to the rescue. But what we must know for sure, regardless of our present circumstances, is that success has many times been defined as what we learn on the road to what we want and not the destination itself. It is not what we have, but the person we must become that will truly give us the best feelings of happiness. Therefore, we should never delay our decision to define our dreams and goals to begin to transmit powerfully that which we desire most. But what action can we best take to get what we want? Are there specific steps we can take to make things happen? The power of perseverance and asking for what we want. Quote, "Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not do it. Nothing is more common in unsuccessful men than talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated failures. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." End quote, by Calvin Coolidge. Pray constantly. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 17. Whether we believe in prayer or not, it is irrelevant. As we have examined the laws of physics in relation to the power of our mind, we have deduced that, in essence, prayer is nothing more than putting out a conscious transmission being broadcasted from our brains. When people pray to their deities or gods, in reality, the transmission of frequency is transmitted, and therefore the laws of physics kick in to bring that vibration back. The difference is knowing that we can create whatever frequency we want, and being aware that there may be resistance holding us back and preventing us from receiving what we want. What will eliminate or reduce resistance? The previous subheadings about contentment, discontentment, feeling good, and self-awareness will greatly reduce our resistance and diminish the chances of us not receiving what we want. Although these are all great foundational bases for receiving what we want, there is one thing that is powerful enough to give us what we want regardless of our happiness, self-awareness, and contentment. The biblical reference has highlighted through some simple illustrations the power of persistence and perseverance. The combination of effort with the power of our conscious transmission will create powerful results in our lives. Our power and ability to give on a consistent basis will determine the speed and the efficacy of our being able to receive that which we are asking. It is of utmost importance that persistence becomes prevalent and ingrained into our makeup through our neural pathways and DNA vibration. As emphasized by the quote, persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. Let's consider some illustrations from the biblical reference that will help us learn and grasp the power and meaning of persistence and determination. Quote, "Suppose one of you has a friend, and you go to him at midnight and say to him, 'Friend, lend me 3 loaves, because one of my friends has just come to me on a journey, and I have nothing to offer him.' But that one replies from inside, 'Stop bothering me. The door is already locked, and my young children are with me in bed. I cannot get up and give you anything.' I tell you, even if he will not get up and give him anything because of being his friend, certainly because of his bold persistence, he will get up and give him whatever he needs." End quote. Taken from Luke chapter 11, verses 5 through 9. Quote, In a certain city there was a judge who had no fear of God and no respect for man. There was also a widow in that city who kept going to him and saying, "See that I get justice from my legal opponent." Well, for a while he was unwilling, but afterward he said to himself, "Although I do not fear God or respect any man, because this widow keeps making me trouble, I will see that she gets justice so that she will not keep wearing me out with her demand." End quote. Taken from Luke 18 verses 1 through 7. The illustrations are simple and drive the point home. The power of persistence and determination will get us what we want regardless of people, circumstances, or situations that we may have in our lives. The success of those who received what they wanted was determined by their ability to not give up. Never giving up is a paramount object when it comes to transmitting a frequency of vibration, as we are broadcasting and asking for that which we desire. The corrupt judge who couldn't care less about this widow's problems gave in just because he did not want to be worn out from her hearing cry. He got sick and tired of her presence. Therefore, he had no choice but to give in to what she wanted. So whether we decide to pray to our choice of deity, God, or universe, it is irrelevant. We can ask in prayer and use thoughts, words, and speech in harmony with our intention in the form of a conversation, as readily as asking a friend or in the form of a demand like the widow to the judge. But in reality, one of the best ways to ask for what we desire is commanding it to happen. Quote, "Have faith in God. Truly I say to you that whoever tells this mountain, be lifted up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but has faith that what he says will happen, he will have it happen." That is why I tell you, all the things you pray and ask for, have faith that you have received them, and you will have them. End quote. Taken from Mark chapter 11 verses 22 through 24. It must be emphasized here and now in our mind how unequivocally this key scripture teaches that we have the power to command whatever we want to happen with our spoken word. The illustration puts the one asking in the position of a master or boss, like an employer telling his worker to do a certain task. The employee does his bidding without question. The illustration also emphasizes that anybody can command with their words for their desires to come true. We can literally speak things into existence. The laws of physics, according to quantum tunneling, allows for these processes to occur. It is the law that if we have the assured expectation of what we have commanded to happen or ask for, we should consider that it is just like we have already received them. Many religious people may have confusion about this understanding. The illustration encourages faith in God, but then Jesus goes on a tangent, emphasizing that we can command the literal mountain to move from land into the sea. Are we commanding God as if God were our servant? It almost seems to suggest that. I feel more inclined to think that since the biblical reference has described mankind in general as being created in the image of God, in essence we can create and speak things into existence in a similar manner that God said, "Let there be light." Some people may think that it is ridiculous to believe that we are like God, but the biblical reference leaves no doubt to this thought. Consider the clear authority that this passage specifically describes our potential for creation. Quote, "For instance, which is easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up and walk'? However, in order for you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, then he said to the paralytic, 'Get up, pick up your stretcher and go to your home.' And he got up and went to his home. When the crowd saw this, they were struck with fear, and they glorified God who gave such authority to men." End quote. Taken from Matthew chapter 9, verses 5 through 8. In harmony with the authority of commanding a mountain to transfer from one place to another, here, the biblical reference clearly states that what Jesus was able to do with such ease, so can mankind. We can command anything we desire to happen, for just like Jesus commanded the paralyzed man to get up and walk to his house, the same way that the paralyzed man had no choice but to do so, also must our desires expressed in the form of commanding words occur. The current state of affairs had to completely change on the paralyzed man. Therefore, he was able to go home healed. The biblical reference in its pages clearly highlights that we have such authority. Quantum physics portrays that it is a reality. People who create amazing success know and understand that they have such power. Therefore, they create whatever they desire. Obviously, in this instant in time, we may not command things to happen as easily and discernible as this account portrays Jesus as being able to do, but the potential does exist. Quote, "Most truly I say to you that whoever exercises faith in me will also do the works that I do, and he will do works greater than these." End quote. Taken from John chapter 14, verse 12. It is our moral obligation to exercise our innate abilities to the point that our faith will allow us to achieve things and command things to happen as big and drastic as what Jesus did with seeming ease. The great news is that our faith must only be as big as the size of a mustard grain. Quote, "Truly I say to you, if you have faith the size of a mustard grain, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you." End quote. Taken from Matthew 17, verse 20. But how can we exercise our faith to such degree? We must take baby steps and start creating little by little. Perseverance and determination is demonstrated in the following illustration. Quote, "Keep on asking and it will be given you. Keep on seeking and you will find. Keep on knocking and it will be open to you. For everyone asking receives, and everyone seeking finds, and to everyone knocking it will be open. Indeed, which one of you, if his son asks for bread, will hand him a stone? Or if he will ask for a fish, he will not hand him a serpent, will he? Therefore, if you, although being wicked, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more so will your Father who is in the heavens give good things to those asking him." End quote. Taken from Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 through 11. It is aptly described here that our ability to receive a desired result comes from not giving up in asking, seeking, and knocking. We must also readily know that we will receive from the given transmission through the laws of the universe that which matches our broadcast of frequency. We must know that doing so is like asking the best possible parent in the world, in this case, the laws of physics working diligently for us. Thus we will receive that piece of bread or fish. What we want is already created in the ether, and it is as easy to manifest into our reality as a parent giving his son that piece of bread or fish. Does it not make sense that when we command something to happen, since it is law for us to receive, then our feeling must be as if we already received it? We are truly masters of our universe, and according to the biblical reference, it was God who gave us such authority over the physical universe. It is like a genie that is at our disposal, ready to do our bidding, like a servant who is eagerly working for us because he wants to please us. The Bible essentially has always taught us that we do indeed have our own personal genie, ready to grant us our every wish. The laws of physics prove this to be true. Biblical text illustrates this simply too. Quote, "Now the apostle said to the Lord, 'Give us more faith.' Then the Lord said, 'If you have faith the size of a mustard grain, you will say to the black mulberry tree, Be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it will obey you. Which one of you has a slave plowing or shepherding will say to him when he comes in from the field, come here at once and dine at the table? Rather, will he not say to him, get something ready for me to have my evening meal, and put on an apron and serve me until I finish eating and drinking, and afterward you can eat and drink? He will not feel gratitude to the slave because he did what was assigned, will he? End quote. Taken from Luke chapter 17 verses 5 through 9. Here it is emphasized that our faith is strongly connected to our ability to realize that we can command what we desire to happen. The universe will comply as readily as we feel like a master commanding his slave to do his bidding. We should not be in expectation of it as if someone greater than us were doing us a favor, and thus we feel indebted or unworthy. If we feel like slaves fearfully asking for what we want, we will not receive because we are already in fear or are conscious of what we do not desire. Many times we fear those who have greater power or authority than ourselves. We look up to those who are our bosses or leaders. Instead, we must have the attitude of not even feeling gratitude for what we assign the universe to do for us. In the same manner, if God himself commands his servants to do something and does not feel gratitude for it, then we realize we are the universe's God, and therefore we do not feel indebtedness or gratitude for doing what it was commanded to do. This must be our mental state and predominant attitude toward transmission of desire to the universe if we are to receive what we want. Give us more faith. Another key ingredient is realizing that we may not have the faith that we need to create that which we want the most. The biblical reference emphasizes that we must ask for such faith as a desired result first, before we try to ask for that which requires at least a measure of faith the size of a mustard grain. We must develop such faith by broadcasting the intention that that is exactly what we desire. We can ask for the freedom to ask or command for that which we want. In essence, if we desire to progress in this process, it is our moral obligation to command that we must be given such faith, and thus it must be developed within us. The other side of the coin of faith, works. Quote, indeed, just as the body without spirit is dead, so also faith without works is dead. End quote. Taken from James chapter 2 verse 26. Faith has been previously defined as the assured expectation of what is hoped for, the evident demonstration of realities although not beheld. It is the feeling of knowingness that we will have the desired outcome, event, or thing. Our hope expects it until what we want is in our present reality. The question then arises, can I just lie on my bed and command things to happen? Don't I have to do something? Can I just have hope and faith that it will take place without any action on my part? One joke illustrates it like this. A lady was praying to God saying, God, please make me win the lottery. A second time the lady prayed, God, please allow me to win the lottery for I have lost my job. After some time the lady prayed again, God, please make me win the lottery for my kids are hungry and I don't have a job yet. A little more time passed as well and she kept praying, God, please, I am asking you with despair. My husband left me, my kids are hungry, and I have no job, so please allow me to win the lottery. Then the heavens opened up and God said, Lady, would you please buy the lottery ticket already? Another joke goes like this. A priest owned a church in town for he was God-fearing. A warning for coming storms and possible flooding was issued. People were told to leave town because the danger was imminent. The priest was told to leave his church, but he responded, I don't have to leave, for God will take care of me. The rains came and started to flood the town. The priest was told to leave town again, but the priest responded with the same thing. I don't have to leave, for God will take care of me. The flood started to rise, and then a boat came to the priest. "We are here to rescue you," they said. The priest responded in the same manner. "I don't have to leave, for God will save me." Then the floods kept rising. The priest was on the roof, and then another boat came. "We're here to rescue you." The priest insisted. "I don't have to leave, for God will save me." Then after a while, the flood kept rising even more, and a chopper came by and said, "We are here to rescue you." The priest again replied, "I don't have to leave, for God will rescue me." The floods then rose to the point of drowning the priest, and he died and went to heaven. Mad, the priest asked God, "What happened? I have faith that you will rescue me, and you let me die." God responded, "Dummy, I sent you 2 warnings, 2 boats, and a chopper." The point is simple. Faith without works is dead. We must act in harmony with our transmissions of frequencies to have real power. We must give our energy, time, and effort if we are to create or receive that which we have asked. Our faith is enforced through our actions to make things happen. For example, if we desire to be in shape and picture a result, then we must realize that doing things that are in disharmony with this goal will not help us create what we want. We cannot get a hardcore six-pack or defying chest sitting on our couches watching TV or playing video games while eating junk food all day long. As we begin to exercise and change what we eat to that which will help us get in shape, we will begin to receive people, circumstances, and events that will continue to enforce our desire and motivation to continue exercising. This will perpetuate the energy in our field of matrix and will continue to do so, ultimately helping us create the body we desire. Difference between knowing the path and walking the path. In the movie The Matrix, the character Neo was confused about the feedback he got from the Oracle, who was a guide that would help him achieve ultimate power. Morpheus explained to him that Neo only heard exactly what he needed to hear, and that was all. Morpheus added, "Neo, sooner or later you're going to realize, just as I did, that there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path." But what does this really mean in reference to our goals and dreams? Simply put, if we desire a better job or more income, we may begin to broadcast what we want, a better job or more income. The universe will begin to present us with people, circumstances, and events that will help us get closer to what we want. But we must know first that we should not wait on such responses from the universal field to take action, for we can demonstrate our faith by taking the initiative. We can begin to search for a new job or improve our skills and expedite the process, at which point the universe will continue to guide us in the right direction for our desired outcome or result. One thing that is paramount is that we must realize the truth of the matter, that works, skills, or actions are not really the key. We must take this as a warning because then we will create resistance. This is the warning. Quote, "So, then, it depends not on a person's desire or on his effort, but on God, the universe, who has mercy. For what reason? Because they pursued it not by faith, but as by works. But God, the universe, kept making it grow, so that neither is the one who plants anything, nor is the one who waters, but God, the universe, who makes it grow." End quote. Taken from Romans chapter 9, verse 16 and verse 32, and 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 6 through 7. This is a strange dichotomy and paradox. Consider the steps. We make the decision that we want something and we want to create it. We first transmit, use our brain, the dream or goal in the form of a desire. The broadcast of frequency will continue to permeate our matrix, adding more energy to it as we continue to think, talk, and act on that dream. Our positive feelings of expectation amp the power of our transmission or vibration of our thoughts, words, and actions. We create habits that generate more energy based on those thoughts, words, and actions, which continue to perpetuate the transmission from our brain even more powerfully. The energy gets to the tipping point where the scales come to the other side of the matrix, the field of particles of energy defined by time and space. The result? The universe, through its most foundational laws, creates people, circumstances, situations, events, and things to make it happen in our life. We get exactly what we want by law. The paradox is this: it is not our works, actions, skills, or plans that create and make what we want happen. It is the accumulation of energy from all the thoughts, words, and actions that continue to broadcast the already created dream from the matrix of wave particles to our observable universe, the matrix of particles of energy defined by time and space. It is the energy generated and broadcasted from our brain, the total accumulation of all our thoughts. The words are thoughts. The actions are based on thoughts originated by the original desire. As the biblical reference points out, it is up to God or the universe to create it in your field. We are the ones watering and fertilizing the seeds of our dreams, but it is the universe or God that brings them into our existence. We want to emphasize here that we're not suggesting that the universe is the same as God. This parallel just describes that it is laws of the universe that engage and work for us and with us to create what we want. It is all for posterity and objectivity. This highly suggests that our entire makeup is not separate from our universe, but unequivocally connected to us, connected to who we are and what we are. Essentially, we may be the singularity of our own universe. The warning then is this, quote, "Do not be misled, my beloved brothers. Every good gift and every perfect present is from above, coming down from the Father of the celestial lights, who does not vary or change like the shifting shadows." End quote. Taken from James chapter 1, verse 16. The warning is that when we are focused on our actions or how to achieve things, we will not get what we want or we will not create it. It is our faith, perseverance, and persistence and our ability to continue giving that frequency of energy so that we may receive that which we have established as the desired result. For example, let's say we decide we want a brand new car. We find out the car is worth $80,000. We notice that it is out of our income range and there is absolutely no way we can buy it or finance it. The first thing that comes to mind is, how in the world am I going to buy it? Since we do not see in our present reality how to buy it, then we give up on the idea of getting it. The broadcast was weak, and instead it creates fear and doubt. The focus is now on the absence of the car as opposed to having it. Therefore, it will always not be there because that is the current state of mental focus. Then the nature of the words become that of, there is no way, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, I will never make that much money. The universe will then mirror that arrangement, and we will not see a how to accomplish getting the car. That agreement will spill over and affect other desires related to money, health, relationships, and even spiritual matters, among other things. Habits of thought will invite an equivalent or similar form of thought that will affect our decision making. Instead, what we must realize is that the how to achieve it really is not up to us. What is up to us is our ability to sustain and persevere in holding a state of transmission while acting in harmony with what we desire. We may start researching how other people get the car. We may also find out that people who get such seemingly expensive items have businesses of their own, and therefore we may decide to look to establish our own business. We may start doing research on different kinds of businesses we could possibly engage in. We may start to take classes to improve our skills, or start taking certain courses to learn specific business or jobs that provide such income that will allow us to receive that which we want. This is what it means to act in harmony. Remember, we now know that it is the universe that will ultimately help us create in our present reality. While we are engaged in this process of acting in harmony with what we want, then we may find that through some strange circumstance, we get exactly what we want. We will find that it will happen not through the way or how we choose to get what we desire. The universal laws will push us in certain direction tangential to what we are currently engaging in. Maybe everything falls apart in another way or how presents itself, and that may be the way to get there. But we must know that it is paramount that we exercise our ability to sustain that transmission long enough to achieve our dream or goal. This is the creation process, and it must be firmly established in our mind if we are to progress and move from our present reality. The present reality that we may have created thus far may be so out of place and so far from what we desire that it may essentially make us feel like failures and that we are hopeless. But what we must understand is that it is the accumulation of the energy that is vibrating into the ether or matrix of wave frequencies that will create the result. The dream or goal has already been created there, but to bring it into our existence, we must continue to give energy until that big ball of energy reaches the tipping point. Then the universe, with all its laws, creates our goal and our reality. These are the mechanics, but in essence, it is our decision to acquire something we want that starts the whole process. As long as we hold on to that decision, regardless of circumstances, we will create it through our transmission. As the laws of the universe begin to operate from the conception of that decision. The successful failure. Quote, "You unreasonable person. What you sow is not made alive unless first it dies. And as for what you sow not the body that will develop, but just a bare grain, whether of wheat or some other kind of seed. But God, or universe, gives it a body just as it has pleased him, and gives to each of the seeds its own body." End quote. Taken from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 36 through 38. Quote, "Nobody sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old outer garment. If he does, the new piece pulls away from the old, and the tear becomes worse. Also, no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is lost as well as the skins. But new wine is put into new wineskins." End quote. Taken from Mark chapter 2, verses 21 and 22. We may feel confused because many times we will set up a goal or desire and work really hard without seeing any results. This will absolutely happen. Another scenario that will consistently happen is that when we choose to pursue a goal or desire, the how will completely collapse and end up not working out. Maybe the business fails, or we see very minimal results. This is when a shift in our consciousness must take place. We must know that failure is just a sign that we are getting closer to what we want. Thomas Edison was quoted as saying that he did not fail 10,000 times when creating the incandescent light bulb. He said, quote, "I successfully found 10,000 ways that it would not work." End quote. This is very positive in the reality of the laws of physics. How and why? Before the 18th century, the concept of science was created through the scientific method. Empirical evidence became paramount to establish facts and replicable results. It has unleashed an enormous amount of information that continues to make technology progress exponentially. The laws of physics are more clearly defined and explained in ways that are easily described by mathematics. It is now being shown that through integration of physics and numbers, the entire cosmos can continually be described by mathematical formulas. These formulas are then translated into physical laws of the universe. Interestingly, it was the laws of physics that were first established as theory and then proven through complex mathematical formulas. The law always precedes the formulas that describe them. This means that mathematics is intertwined and integrated into the fabric of space. Simply put, without the concept of time and space as an observable notion, then we will not be able to measure time or space. One cannot exist without the other. The dimensions of the rooms in our homes and buildings all have been first established through a careful foundations of workable mathematical concepts and laws of physics, for they all must be applied precisely without error for builders to be able to establish replicas of what is designed on paper. Everything in essence is constructed through pre-established basic foundational principles, or laws of physics defined by mathematical concepts observable by our minds. But what does time and space have anything to do with the concepts of failure and success? It has everything to do with it. Realizing that we must accept the pre-established physical laws of the universe allows us to replicate a simple predetermined quota of movements or actions to create the result. Failure, by definition, is described by the infinite nature of the universe as it relates to time and space. The ramifications of infinity aptly explain or highly suggest that we must fail an infinite amount of times before we succeed. The opposite is also true, for infinity says that we must succeed an infinite amount of times before we fail. This is a strange paradox, for how can we ever succeed if we are to fail an infinite amount of times and vice versa? This has been referred as infinite regress. It means that principles must be founded on another principle. It may be illustrated like the weird optical illusion of mirrors reflecting each other ever onward into infinity. Principle 1 requires the support of Principle 2. The truth of Principle 2 requires the support of Principle 3, and so forth, ad infinitum. Zeno's paradox is defined in the story of the tortoise and the Achilles. A turtle gets a head start of 100 feet against Achilles, and as such, Achilles can start running once the turtle hits the 100 feet mark. Logically, the runner catches up to him rather easily and will win the race. But in essence, according to the laws of physics, how they relate to time and space, that is impossible. Why? Because the laws of physics describe that the runner must always reach an infinite of halfway points before he catches up to the turtle. The runner must reach the 50 feet mark, but before that, he must reach the 25 feet mark. Before that, he must reach the 12.5 feet mark. And before that, he must reach the 6.25 feet mark, and so on and so forth. This process, through the laws of math, requires the runner to go through a paradoxical and infinite amount of points before he reaches the turtle. Thus, he can never catch up to the turtle. This has blown away the minds of philosophers, scientists, and mathematicians. It is a radical idea. At this point, the reader may be totally perplexed by the implication described here therein. This is in line with the thought by King Solomon of ancient Israel. Quote, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has even put eternity in their heart. Yet mankind will never find out the work that the true God has made from start to finish." End quote. Taken from Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11. We may realize logically that the runner never catching up to the turtle is ludicrous, and therefore he will always catch up to him regardless of what the laws of math say in connection to the fabric of time and space. Of course this is true because that is what we know must happen. Have we considered that it is the strong, powerful faith, the assured expectation of what is hoped for, the knowingness that Achilles has what it takes to win the race? It is his faith that makes him go past the turtle. It is this knowingness, vibration from his mind, that allows his particles of infinite possibility that permeate the runner, which program him and allows him to reach the goal and pass the turtle. The runner, from the start, has already passed the turtle in his mind without a shadow of doubt. He has already predetermined that he has beaten the turtle and there's nothing the turtle can do about it. The turtle has no choice but to lose. So according to the laws of physics, the runner has already lost an infinite amount of times to the turtle, and thus has gone through an infinite amount of points trying to reach it. Therefore, it is Achilles' strong faith that allows him to win. It is a strange, radical paradox, but faith is a mathematical concept pre-established in the laws of the universe, essentially tied into quantum particle physics in connection to the realm of time and space. Our consciousness knows we can outrun the turtle. Therefore, our faith makes it happen, and that is exactly what we must observe. We get what we want. In the same manner, our faith must catch up to our desires. Our decision that we already have what we want makes it happen. It is our doubt and disbelief that create failure and makes us give up. But it is our persistence and patience that determines through our faith whether we will receive what we want or not. Success is truly just a decision away. Albert Einstein said that we cannot solve the current problems with our pre-established thoughts and habits that have created them. Tesla said that the energy mass that prevents us from achieving what we may desire will not change until the new thoughts of knowledge gradually changes the status quo. We cannot currently achieve what we may desire because our mass must change to match that which we want. We get what we want because we must become what we think about most of the time. Failure through Isaac's third law of motion forces us to focus on whether or not we will be able to achieve what we want. It reinforces our decision to create what we want based on our current situation. It will either convince us that it is impossible and make us quit, or it will help us more clearly focus and desire more strongly. This is that which we must continue to take place until we create what we want by means of our strong focus on thought transmission. We cannot sew a new patch onto an old garment, as suggested by Jesus. We must completely transform and become new to get the new. How? Life as we think we know it, it's impossible. Therefore, we must focus. The essence of persistence and perseverance is focus. Consider what a lower life form is programmed to do by instinct. Plants, in this instinct, have been described as being able to efficiently process light, photons or particles of light, to create their own food source and nourishment. They are a factory that recreates light into infinitely denser energies. According to classical physics, this is really impossible. Why? Because the particles that compose plants are dense and defined in time and space. We can illustrate it like this. Imagine parallel steel beams placed a quarter inch from each other. Imagine that we have a wall of billions of these beams placed in front of us from side to side in one line from left to right. Then we observe that there are also billions of these beams placed in front of this wall and past the wall. Therefore, we observe that this structure is billions of steel beams wide and deep. Consider that each successive steel beam wall is placed randomly in front of the space that separates it from the first wall. And down the line, you find that the pattern continues with each wall. Like a dense crowd of people with no discernible arrangement or alignment, we will have to maneuver our way in carefully without touching anyone to move through the crowd. Imagine that in the middle of this dense crowd of random steel beams placed a quarter inch from each other, there is $1 billion for the taking. The challenge, we are told, is that we must go through the dense structure blindfolded. As we stand in defeat in front of the problem, we find that it is impossible for us to reach the center and get our reward. In the same manner, the photons of light are even less likely to reach the center as we are reaching the center of this massive structure. This is because the plant makes up trillions upon trillions of atoms of thickness in length and width, height, or depth. The radical paradox is that plants are able to efficiently draw and make those particles of light reach its center to create its own food. They grow and prosper. How? The laws of physics at a quantum level allow this to take place with perfect efficiency based on the decision and focus of the consciousness of the plant. Simply put, the focus of the plant is to produce food by means of the photosynthesizing core. The focus and decision of the plants makes the photons that collide with itself to become wave particles. This is called quantum superposition. In essence, it takes the photons defined by time and space and turns them into wave particles. Imagine us being multiplied by the trillions of possible routes we could take in this massive structure of being standing in front of us. Then imagine taking each possible route simultaneously until the shortest, quickest route is found. Remember that photons of light cannot consciously decide to swerve between beams, but blindly it continues to collapse against the particles that make up the plants. In the same manner, hitting every possible beam must be accounted into the multiplication, because we must blindly travel through the maze. Finally, from all the possible routes one could take, the successful person does reach the center and grabs the prize. The plant collapses all the trillions of possible routes the particle could take that did not reach the center, and therefore observes the only one that does reach the center, and it becomes the only possibility. In reality, it becomes the only choice because the plant's focus and decision makes it happen. In an instant, the trillions of possible superpositions defined and allowed by the duality of particles must take place. All decisions and routes must take place simultaneously and calculated until the only favorable choice takes place. The information or choice travels back in time and becomes the single and only possible observation in time and space. The double-slit experiment allows for information to travel back in time and create a different outcome. This was observed when scientists decided to observe the wave particles hitting the second wall at the last instant. What they observed was mind-blowing and confusing. What they saw was no longer an interference pattern, but a defined pattern. Almost as if the particles went back in time and decided to go through both slits, just as particles with solid properties do. This may be very hard to comprehend fully, but it is described herein to establish that failure only happens because we decide to observe failure. We as human beings are more powerful than any plant. We can focus our mind to the outcome of our success, and that dream or goal must become the only choice. This does not mean that we will experience an insurmountable amount of routes on our way to success, but that we will experience the only route to our desired result. Successful people seem to be quoted saying similar experiences on their way to success. Consider a few. Quote, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." End quote. Frederick Douglass. Quote, "If you want to be happy, set a goal that commands your thoughts, liberates your energy, and inspires your hopes." End quote. Andrew Carnegie. Quote, "As long as the mind can envision the fact that you can do something, you can do it, as long as you really believe 100%. End quote. Arnold Schwarzenegger. "In the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity." End quote. By Albert Einstein. "Everything you can imagine is real." End quote. By Pablo Picasso. "Don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once." End quote. By Drew Houston. "If you're going through hell, keep going." End quote. Winston Churchill. You can find similar quotes describing the same ideas about failure and perseverance throughout many sources, and thus the point is firmly established. Sometimes we must experience what we don't want to clearly define and pursue what we truly want. We must exercise our mental faculties to use the power of our imagination to picture the result as the only option. Our photosynthesizing process of the wave particles in the infinite energetic field of our matrix will spill over until it is the only choice in our present reality. Our focus, perseverance, and determination is unfathomable and omnipotent. Nothing can change that law, for if we desire to achieve what we want, this process must be engaged, period. So focus. The best energy we can give to achieve financial wealth. Quote, bring the entire tithe into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house, and test me out, please, in this regard. Jehovah of Armies says, to see whether I will not open to you the floodgates of the heavens and pour out on you a blessing until there's nothing lacking. End quote. Taken from Malachi chapter 3 verse 10. Quote, honor Jehovah with your valuable things, with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your storehouses will be completely filled, and your vats will overflow with new wine. End quote. Taken from Proverbs chapter 3 verses 9 through 10. Clearly, we must exercise our faculties of giving. Here it is emphasized throughout the biblical reference that as a result of our efforts to give, we will receive an exchange of abundance. People become poor out of their own volition and their habitual mentality in the focus of lack. People are poor and broke because they are mentally focused on belief that there's not enough. We may ask, how can we give if we don't have enough for ourselves? This is an illusion and a decision that will continue to perpetuate our reality, and thus we will never have enough. This commentary is absolutely not just regarding money, but every conceivable aspect of success, happiness, and abundance. For example, an individual who feels lack of love from a mate or suffer from loneliness may envy other individuals who have managed to create such riches and abundance. The antisocial and easily offended individual who feels lonely for lack of friendship and real friends may criticize and condemn those who may be more popular because of their more outgoing and caring personalities. For as a result, friendlier individuals will draw to themselves people who love their company. Thus, the same principle applies to those who feel financial stress or pressures, for their lack of resources is the result of their own doing. It is all based on their conscious awareness of energetic prosperity and their corresponding physical manifestations. It has been known that the biggest philanthropists have been known to be incredibly financially successful. People may say that it is because they are financially rich that they have a surplus to give. Although this may be true in some cases, the truth, according to the laws of physics, is that they continue to receive more because they have been given more since the beginning. They give first before they spend on themselves, and by law they reap what they sow. They become more successful and attain bigger and more abundant riches. The saying that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer is true based on the laws of physics. The law of magnetic attraction has to match what you have given out. The seeds that you continue to plant and fertilize become trees that produce abundant fruit. Thus, we must be self-aware of the nature of those trees. Have we planted seeds of lack or abundance? Let's consider a story in the biblical reference that will empower us. It is found in 1 Kings chapter 17 verses 1 through 16. The reader is strongly encouraged to read the account, for it teaches a powerful lesson. To establish background information, Jehovah, the God of the Hebrews, had appointed a man by the name of Elijah to become his spokesman for the nation of Israel. During that time, there was great economic turmoil because the nation had forgotten to pursue and obey the law that was originally established for their own good and prosperity. They were paying the price for failing to follow some very simple principles founded on the laws of the universe. Therefore, his messenger, he sent him to a widow in a land called Zarephath. Once Elijah reaches the place, he meets a widow with an only son. According to the record, the widow has nothing. There is drought in the land. She is a widow with no source of income. She has a son, and all she has left is a small jar with a little oil and a handful of flour to bake some bread. Her situation is so dire and desperate that she believes she and her son will die after this one meal. It is an interesting paradox because God had promised Elijah food, shelter, and provisions through this widow. After Elijah requested a round cake for himself, the widow expressed her grief on how she could not provide what she was requested. In response, Elijah says, quote, "Do not be afraid. Go in and do as you said. But first, make me a small round loaf of bread with what is there, and bring it out to me. Then you can make something afterward for you and your son. For this is what Jehovah, the God of Israel, says. The large jar of flour will not run out, and the small jar of oil will not run dry until the day Jehovah makes it rain on the surface of the ground." End quote. Taken from 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 13 through 14. What a strange request. The story points out that the means of provision would not run out as long as she first gave what she had. The lesson is clear. We can absolutely always give something of ourselves regardless of our circumstances, for it is highly unlikely that they are as bad as the widow's situation. She gave all she had first for the benefit of others. This is not to imply that we must give everything we have to others. But what about just 10% of our income, resources, time, or energy? The words of Malachi are based on the laws of the universe, for they will activate and we will continue to increase even though we are given our resources. No matter how little we have, we can give at least 10% off the top first for the benefit of others. The bigger our contributions, the bigger our return of investment must be. People will save and invest in real estate, stocks, saving accounts, or businesses with the hope of getting some returns. Many do and many do not. But according to this principle, we will absolutely, with 100% certainty, get a return on our investment. If we were given a stock pick that guarantees a return of investment of 100-fold, will we not do it? Imagine that the stock is guaranteed by the state treasury, the president and vice president of the country, the Federal Reserve, and even the Securities and Exchange Commission. You see that on their contract, all the signatures are set. All you have to do is sign the paper and make the investment. Will we not do it? The laws of the universe will act in favor of our agreement and will bring us by law a greater return on investment. The neural pathways that we develop will continue to vibrate and create people, circumstances, and events that will continue to give us more opportunities to give more. Therefore, we must have a lot more to give. To whom should we give our resources? It is up to us to decide what we wish to do. There are charitable organizations that have great causes. Our family members may need our help. Whatever we decide, we can really give our resources away for any cause or to anybody. And by law, it must make us wealthier. We become what we think about, and therefore we broadcast the nature of those thoughts and actions. There is more happiness in giving than receiving, because we get more and can continue to expand our reality by giving more of ourselves. Let's make sure we understand why this is true by continuing to expand on these concepts, for by reviewing them repeatedly, we will live these laws and see powerful results in our lives. This all proves that there is absolutely more happiness in giving than receiving, and by all means let us resolve to persevere in our ability to give away as much as we can give, so that we may continue to receive even more abundantly than what we have given. It is the law under contract. Tying it all together. May we suggest that this chapter be reread not once but many times. The entire chapter focuses on helping us become more aware to the vibration we are offering. It is the nature of what we are giving out that will determine our success. Knowing that contentment and striving focus to feel as good as we possibly can will set us up to create better and faster. As we give thanks for every experience, whether good or bad, we will continue to perpetuate our neural pathways and focus on being able to stay a cause and in control of our lives and the things we create. Our perseverance and persistence to send out a transmission of frequency to its point of manifestation in our physical lives is also the key to create whatever we want. It is paramount that we understand that is how we create. Realizing that our actions and skills are not really important, but our ability to sustain a transmission of frequency is the most relevant cognition that will help us supersede negative thinking and stop worrying about failures or minor setbacks. Being aware that there is a difference between knowing the path and walking the path to our goals will help us sustain our focused vibration. This will remind us that our goals and dreams are not defined by the amount of failures we may experience along the way. Knowing that failures are just powerful energy to help us more precisely and more strongly define our dreams and focus on them will give us fantastic opportunities to renew the power of our output. Our transmissions of frequency for our dreams will be amped and we will create more efficiently. Giving resources and money will propel our dreams because as we freely water others, we will be freely watering ourselves. It will become law that as we focus on helping others to improve their lives by our giving 10% of our income or whatever amount we choose, that in itself will propel us to achieve and create our dreams much faster and better, proportionate to what we have given. Giving is the key to our happiness and the realization of our dreams. Practicing our ability to give is what will create more abundance in our lives, more than anything else we can possibly do. As we exercise our faith and ability to focus, we will continue to permeate the ether with our desire, and we will find the floodgates of the heavens opening to us so much prosperity that we will not know what to do with it. It is the law.